Philippines. Welcome to the Sockside Society TV show. For today's segment, we are going to talk about the neoliberalism and its limits. By the way, I am Khalid Marfa from the Group 4, but before we get into it, let me introduce you to my guest this morning so that we can have a full understanding of what is neoliberalism all about. First, we have Aravis Giselle, Akab Joe Rose, Taurus Green, Narciso Christine, and George Imwa. So they are my guests this morning for the neoliberalism and its limits. So first, allow me to discuss to you a short description of what is neoliberalism. So when we say neoliberalism, it is a political ideology that seeks to transfer control of the economy from the government to the public sector. Neoliberalism is often associated with Thatcher and Reagan in the 1980s more generally, but most of it actually has its roots in an ideology more than 100 years older. The best way to understand neoliberalism is an ideology that came about in response to the economic stagnation and high dip of 1970s. As a result of this, a group of economists, the chiefest amongst which were Milton Friedman and Friedrich Hayek, called for a return to classical liberalism, which helps explain the name neoliberalism, neo meaning in this case. On the other hand, classical liberalism is generally associated with an ideology that became popular in the 19th century that stressed individual freedom and democracy, and that is the right of the people to choose their own government. However, in the early 20th century across the world, a different type of liberalism began to replace classical liberalism, known as social liberalism or a modern liberalism. This kind of liberalism focused more on removing the things that were seen as obstacles to individual freedom, like poverty, wealth, inequality, and social injustices, like racism and discrimination. And because of this, many aspects of the early welfare state, like government-provided healthcare, however, because of neoliberalism's emphasis on the economic rights of the individual right to do as he or she pleases with their own money, it means that if they lost money or lost their job, that's their own fault. Because of this, under a neoliberal system, is inequality or subhab more than others is inevitable and even desirable. This approach costs a lot to pay for things like tax cuts. Money would often comes from writing public services that help the weakest in the society. Also, because of the stress neoliberalism places on individuals over the government, there is a less of emphasis on democracy. That classical liberalism and social liberalism, neoliberals tend to fear the mob rule effect of democracy, that people could vote in governments that could infringe on the economic rights of individuals, like socialist governments. Friedrich Hayek even went as far as to argue that neoliberalism could be brought about under a dictatorship. There is an extent to which this has in fact happened in many countries. What with crony capitalism and the housing crisis in 2008, the government supported the interests of banks and big businesses, contrary to what people actually wanted them to do. They effectively subverted democracy. To conclude, neoliberalism is a political ideology that became popular during the 1980s as a response to the economic stagnation of the previous decade. A primarily economic ideology, neoliberalism prides the individual's right to do as he or she chooses with their own money, who wants to cut all the barriers this, including high taxes, regulations, and even subsidies and benefits. Government policies, according to neoliberals, risk freeing individuals and businesses from the competition they supposedly need to thrive.
Greetings, I am Green Macy's Forest, taking a Bachelor of Secondary Education, reading major in Social Studies. Neoliberals like Hayek and Friedman, on the other hand, favored a return to classical liberalism, and with the successive elections of the right-wing governments in the 1980s, they held their ways to this social liberal consensus that they saw as being responsible for the economic stagnation and high debt of 1970s. The neoliberal approach in its emphasis of the values of classical liberalism prides the economic rights of the individual above all else. Because of this, neoliberals believe that government policies such as taxation and regulation reduce the freedom from the individual to do what he or she wants with their own money. Neoliberals also believe that the competition improves business, and they can only experience the full brunt of this when free regulation and subsidies, which is money that the government gives to business. What is called laissez-faire economics, coming from the French phrase leave alone. This means the government stays out of the economy as much as possible. This manifested itself as major deregulation, reduced taxes, as well as more free trade and cutting subsidies to manufacturing industries. Also, whereas John Maynard Keynes' economic approach pushed for the government intervening in the economy to make sure everybody had a job and spending lots during recessions to ward off unemployment, neoliberals favored government staying out of the economy as much as possible, and thus believed the best way to stabilize an economy was to control the money supply as opposed to spending more. This is called monetarism.
Good day everyone. By the way, I am Giselle Nativo Arabis, so my assigned topic is all about neoliberalism. What is neoliberalism? Neoliberalism is a policy model that encompasses both politics and economics. It favors private enterprise and seeks to transfer the control of economic factors from the government to the private sector. Many neoliberal policies consider the efficient functioning of free market capitalism and focus on limiting government spending, government regulation, and public ownership. Understanding neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is a political and an economic philosophy that emphasizes free trade, deregulation, globalization, and a reduction in government spending. Characteristics of neoliberalism. Neoliberalism involves the belief that greater economic freedom leads to greater economic and social progress for individuals. It supports free enterprise, competition, deregulation, and importance of individual responsibility. It also supports opposition to the expansion of government power, state welfare, inflation. It also minimizing government control of industry and boosting private sector ownership of business and property. It also supports free market capitalism and the efficient allocation of resources. It also supports globalization rather than heavily regulated markets and protectionism, a reduction in government spending and lower taxes, less government control over economic activity to enhance the efficient functioning of the economy, an increase in the impact by the private sector on the economy, a reduction in union power, and greater flexibility in employment, government intervention when it's needed to help implement, sustain, and protect free market activities. All of these are the characteristics of neoliberalism.
Good morning everyone, I am Akab Rose R. and inclining with the topic neoliberalism in the city. Let's also define what is really meant by the word city, because neoliberalism was already tackled by Ms. Arabis. So when we say city, it is a large human settlement. It can be defined as a permanent and densely settled place with administratively defined boundaries whose members work primarily on non-agricultural tasks. Cities generally have extensive systems for housing, transportation, sanitation, utilities, land use, production of goods, and communication. This can also be distinguished from other human settlements by its relatively great size, but also by its functions and its special symbolic status, which may be conferred by a central authority. So the term can also refer either to the physical streets and buildings of the city or to the collection of people who dwell there, and can be used in a general sense to mean urban rather than rural territory. National censuses use a variety of definitions invoking factors such as population, population density, number of dwellings, economic function, and infrastructure to classify populations as urban. So typical working definitions for small city populations started at around 100,000 people. So neoliberalism and the city is connected because neoliberalism is referred to a market reform policy such as eliminating price controls, lowering trade barriers, and etc. And all of this happened mostly in cities because of great needs of humans for having a great sizes of settlements.
Components of neoliberalism. First one is deregulation. Neoliberalism covers the belief that the government should not interfere with the market's mechanism. In other words, government intervention in the market creates distortion between supply and the demand. This can lead to an undersupply of resources in some cases, whilst an oversupply in others. By deregulating the market, neoliberals believe that the invisible hand will create positive outcomes for the economy. For instance, neoliberals believe that the minimum wage does more harm than goods to low-wage workers. It makes workers with a job better off, whilst preventing low-skilled workers in, thereby benefiting those who already have a job. Second one is the free trade. Free trade is another key characteristic of neoliberalism. Through free trade, each country can trade with each other at no additional cost, thereby benefiting from each nation's comparative advantage. So for example, Brazil is known for its bananas, whilst France is known for its wine and Belgium for its chocolate. Imposing tariffs and other trade barriers make goods more expensive for those implementing them. Neoliberalism believes that the free trade makes it cheaper to buy goods abroad, but also that it is of mutual benefit. In today's age, it may seem that the free trade is taking jobs away from the country and handing them to another. However, neoliberals believe that the shift in job is short-lived as consumers are paying less for goods and services, which can in turn used to pay for other goods, whereby employment can be created. At the same time, it generates an increasing demand from nations abroad as their products are equally cheaper.
So to continue with the four components of neoliberalism, I will discuss the two remaining components of neoliberalism. So number 4, we have privatization. As with classical liberalism, neoliberalism covers the belief that privatization of markets produces the most optimal outcomes. This stems from the view that public ownership is inefficient. As public companies are not restricted by profit and loss, they are able to continue in business despite losing millions. Yet the same luxury would be afforded to private businesses. By allowing the privatization of firms, it will weed out inefficient businesses and leave only the most effective standing, thereby maximizing economic output. So the last component of neoliberalism is the small government. Neoliberalism stems from the belief in freedom of the individual and the power of markets. By regulating markets, it takes that freedom away. For instance, occupational licensing prevents and deters people from pursuing their desired professions. In turn, these policies restrict competition in the marketplace, thereby reducing freedom of choice to the consumer. Maximizing consumer choice is not the only concern of neoliberalism. It is also concerned with the huge levels of government spending. This stems from the belief that governments spend the taxpayers' money inefficiently. So while spend an extra $1 billion in education can improve results, and it is not spent wisely under the government. In turn, neoliberalism believes that government involvement is inefficient, so should be minimized.
Hello to each and everyone. Have a good day. By the way, I am Emil Gonzaga Jorge, based in 3 major in social studies. At this moment, I'll be going to present the part of my report, which is the cities and economic of neoliberalism. First, we're going to define what are the importance or the benefits of neoliberalism on the economy. Neoliberalism is the developing countries remove obstacles to the free market capitalism and allow capitalism to generate development which will trickle to everyone. Another way of putting this is that neoliberals believe that private enterprise or companies should take the lead in development. They believe that if governments promote a business-friendly environment that encourages companies to invest and produce, then this will lead to exports, which will encourage free trade. So, there are some examples of neoliberalism policies exist in our country. So, in the Philippines, neoliberalism first come in the form of the Structural Adjustment Program, which is imposed by the World Bank in the early 1980s in the latter's effort to strengthen the economic's capacity to service its massive external debt. This structural adjustment helped the trigger economic crisis of the 1980s, its contractionary effects being magnified by the onset of the global recession. Another examples of neoliberalism that exists in our country, which is the LRT and Urban Trail Transit public services in Metro Manila. So the LRT are owned by the public sector, but the government sell to the private sector because they believe that private ownership thought to be more effective in terms of running businesses. However, there are also negative impact of neoliberalism in the society. According to the research of Gurnham 2017, the biggest conceptual challenge is that neoliberal ideology adopts the language of freedom and choice, increase foreign investment, and open markets and trade to progress policies that lead to privatization of basic needs such as education, healthcare, water, electricity, and housing. This neoliberal ideology are advantage to the rich people because the rich can often afford these services and can compete fairly in the market. But the poor, unable to afford, especially in healthcare, education, decent housing, that can lead to live marginalized. That's all. Thank you for watching and God bless.
Hello everyone, good morning. This is Christine May Magpano Narciso, and my assigned topic is all about cities and economy. Cities are dynamic centers of exchange, innovation, and economic growth and provide a platform where people, ideas, and capital come together. Cities provide big economic advantages for consumers, like wider variety, more convenience, discovery, and greater economic
incomes and economic activity. The third one we have discovery. Cities expose people to more opportunities and help them discover consumption opportunities. Cities provide markets for new and innovative products that give rise to new industries and drive economic progress. And the last one we have opportunity. Cities offer a wider variety of jobs and easier opportunities to acquire additional skills and to move among jobs. Cities attract young workers looking to upgrade their human capital. Metropolitan areas with high levels of education and skills have higher incomes and better economic performance than other metropolitan areas. Building a strong economy is clearly a matter of educating, retaining, and attracting workers. But every worker is also a consumer. If every consumer had exactly the same taste and preferences, and every place offered the same assortment of goods and services, then consumption wouldn't matter much to where people choose to live. Their decisions would be driven primarily by job opportunities. Some trading sector jobs are highly specialized and are concentrated in particular places. But more and more jobs are in largely non-creative local services and are similar from place to place, like teachers, nurses, truck drivers, and cashiers. What cities can do? City economic development strategies would work to exploit and develop these four intrinsic sources of economic advantage. Cities should work to protect and expand the variety of their civic and private consumption opportunities, encouraging greater convenience and promoting discovery. In short, the value proposition that cities offer is that their residents can enjoy a higher standard of living than persons could enjoy in other locations because of the four key assets that are found in urban areas, which is the variety, convenience, discovery, and opportunity. The varying sets of consumption opportunities available in different places are playing an increasingly important role in shaping economies. Critically, for low-income and low-skilled population, cities provide a wealth of opportunity. The dense labor markets of cities means that residents have more potential jobs and that they are less likely to be dependent on the help of a single industry. The customer base available in cities means that people have a richer local market to develop as entrepreneurs. Immigrant entrepreneurs have greater opportunities in urban markets to develop businesses using sweat equity such as restaurants, retail stores, landscaping, and construction. City residents are economically better off because of the wider range of choices that they enjoy. Can't estimate the value that consumers attach to the wider set of choices where cities provide. This gives us a new and